Guys, if you had to guess, how many movies, if any, do you have pre-ordered right now?
I'm not much of a pre-orderer.
Well,
I'll say it.
Here. This fucking guy.
I know. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but I watch over stuff. And then the second that it's like a new release on like Orbit DVD or something, then I get it.
Damn, that's a very personal question, Sam. I'm going to say 20.
Listen, it's been a fucking tough couple of weeks, and my brain broke in half at one point. I was just like, you're right. None of this matters. I have two of the biggest pre-orders of my fucking life right now, and I don't even want to know. And then I fucking ordered all this shit, and that night, I'm in my movie room, like, it just, every time I open a cabinet in my house, like 6 movies fall out of it. It's like, I'm not good anymore, man.
Hello and welcome to Physical Therapy, a movie podcast. We are here every week talking movies, largely inspired by the world of physical media. My name is Kurt.
And I am Sam.
We are honored to be graced once again by the presence of our dear friend, Drew Hanks. What's up, Drew?
Hello. Thank you for having me back. Third time's a charm. I'll deliver finally this time.
You may remember Drew from such episodes as The Departed and Bad Lieutenants.
Yes, who could forget?
And Drew, by the power of Crom, you have come back.
You've come back.
Yes. I've come back to see my enemies driven before me and to hear the lamentation of the Blu-rays.
Damn, my Blu-rays would sing a really loud song.
We are obviously talking today about Arrow's recent 2-pack release of the Conan Chronicles. That is...
Wait. Did you guys both buy the double pack with both Destroyer and Barbarian in it?
Yeah, did you not watch Destroyer?
No.
Oh, baby, okay. Well...
I only watched Barbarian. I didn't get the 2-pack.
Okay, we'll tell you all about
I've had this 2-pack.
This is, of course, Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. The early 1980s star-making films with our hero Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is the return, Sam, to the ongoing Schwarzenegger project here on this podcast. We're back, baby.
I was just going to say, let's have a quick check-in for what was the last Arnold movie we did on the pod?
Probably End of Days?
Collateral Damage?
I thought it was
Wasn't that the same episode?
No, it was Eraser and Collateral Damage.
Yeah, it was that. Collateral Damage really
turned us off there
really
for a hot minute.
Took the wind out of my Schwarzenegger sails.
It caused some collateral damage.
A little bit. It actually totally ruined my friendship with Kurt.
I think that checks as collateral damage.
Let me tell you what put the wind right back in my sails. Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, which we will get to soon. But first, Drew, it's been a minute. What have you watched lately that you liked? It doesn't have to be this week. We haven't talked to you in months, so.
Totally. Well, I'm married, recently married.
Yeah, buddy.
Whoa.
And so I was married in September. Kurt was there with Kim.
Can I tell a quick anecdote?
Yes.
Drew's wedding was great. And the table assignments at Drew and his wife's wedding were themed by films.
Yes.
Kim and I sat at the Chinatown table. There was a Heat table.
Yes.
There were many tables of great films. And there was a little honorable mentions of movies that weren't chosen listed underneath the seating assignment kind of poster. And in that honorable mentions was Tenet.
Yes.
And I've never felt more loved, Drew, and happy to be at a wedding than that moment.
Me and my wife Haley, we do love Tenet. We do love Tenet.
Yes, sir.
And we are proud of it. We caught it at the IMAX 70 re-release. And we actually saw it when it initially came out.
Did you guys see it in theaters?
Yeah. My parents live in Tucson, Arizona. And so that state was open. And we were just there, and I was like, oh my God, we can go see Tenet. And so we've weirdly seen, every time I've watched Tenet, I've actually watched it with Haley.
Hell yeah.
Which is multiple times. Sorry, Haley. But okay, post-wedding leads directly into spooky season. Last year, I had moved during spooky season. So it was all a wash, really. And, you know, leading up to the wedding, there were a lot of Blu-rays. You know, my shame piles were overflowing.
Yeah.
There were just a lot of movies on the list, just growing and growing of unwatched movies. And so I really took it upon myself to do a wide, broad spooky season this year. To speak solely on like physical media, one disc that I'd really like to highlight that I was just totally blown away by was Severin's release of Jess Franco, Christopher Lee, Count Dracula. It was a 4K Ultra HD disc, and it's truly a discovery.
Cool.
Yeah.
What year is that from?
It's a later one, probably 60s.
Okay.
But I'll fact check it real quick.
I've been eyeing this one for a minute, Drew. I have not seen it, nor have I picked it up, but the cover always grabs me. I know of this movie, I just have not seen it myself.
I am a Franco fan and a Dracula, like Christopher Lee Dracula fan. I had somehow not heard of this. I was just completely blown away. It's 1970. Christopher Lee obviously played Dracula in the Hammer horror films. So to see just a completely reimagined Jess Franco version of the Count Dracula myth, also starring Christopher Lee, and a Renfield played by Klaus Kinski.
I was just going to say.
That tracks.
Yeah, and like there's other Jess Franco usuals, like a Soledad Miranda, if I'm remembering her name correctly, who's in stuff. She was kind of his muse for a while, I guess. She's in it. Jess Franco makes an appearance. If you watch the Jess Franco movies, it's a great one. If you haven't seen a Jess Franco film, then you might be like, this is really slow and boring.
Is it kind of as sexy and exploitative as some of his other movies?
Yes.
Okay.
And also like weirdly faithful, but not at all to the Dracula myth.
Okay.
It just like chooses what it wants to, you know?
Yeah.
As a Jess Franco movie does.
I might have to pick it up during their Black Friday. They always have a nice Black Friday sale.
Yes, I was waiting for that myself, but then I went to the Son of Monster Palooza.
Oh, fun.
At Burbank Marriott Convention with a couple friends, and the Severn booth was there. And I thought, cool. What better time to pick it up than now? And so I picked that up. I got their opera release.
Ooh, that opera release is so nice.
It's beautiful. I've seen it multiple times, and I've seen it on film, but I have not seen this new restoration.
The same way. It's sitting in my shame pile right now, but I've also seen it many times. On that note, I actually got to see Claudio Simonetti's Goblin play last night in Portland.
Wow.
And they played a couple songs from opera.
That's amazing.
This is Goblin, the Italian progressive rock band who scored a bunch of Dario Argento movies, as well as Dawn of the Dead.
Suspiria.
This is
Deep Red.
Yeah, this is Deep Red is actually their first credit as Goblin.
You were on the hunt, Drew, for a Deep Red doll at that convention, right?
I got it.
Hell yeah.
I think I got the last one, if I'm not mistaken.
How tall is that doll?
It's probably like 9 inches.
Hell yeah.
8 inches, something like that. Yeah, and so I got that, and then I was thinking about how odd it is that I don't actually own Deep Red. And I have the score on vinyl, too. Just a movie that I grew up weirdly watching all the time. It's, arguably the giallo. Like, it is the kind of the entryway for a lot of people to the true, like, giallo movies. So I picked up the Arrow release of that.
Nice.
It's just a fucking amazing disc. Arrow does not disappoint.
I have that disc as well, and it's incredible. I love Deep Red, but for my money, I'm a Tenebrae guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's still in my shame pile.
Tenebrae rules.
I've never seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I think Deep Red is like the more appreciated and talked about one, like Drew was saying, but there are scenes in Tenebrae that are just mesmerizing.
Kim and I closed out the spooky season with the new Paramount Presents 4K of Ghost.
Whoa.
Oh, how is that?
Dude, Ghost holds up.
Good.
Okay. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah. I had not seen it since I was like a little kid. In fact, there's like a love scene in it that I'm pretty sure I'd never seen. Because I'm pretty sure the last time I saw it, my parents were probably like fast forwarding.
They tied a washcloth around your face.
Exactly. Just dunked my head underwater.
Scalding hot water. Straight out of Deep Red.
Yeah, they were like, you can watch, but you have to touch this stove while you do. Ghost. Yeah. So Paramount presents to the 4K. This is Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoop, dude.
She's amazing in it.
Big whoop.
Patrick Swayze's character dies very early on, and he is kind of stuck between this world and the next, and is communicating with his fiance, I think, through a medium played by Whoopi Goldberg, and Patrick Swayze as a ghost is kind of trying to stop a crime that's hurtling its way toward Demi Moore. And it's just top-notch stuff, like great 90s vibes and really emotional. It got us.
I'm sure. How is the disc?
Great. There's a lot of like optically processed shots, with special effects and things, but for the most part, it's excellent, really filmic, and yeah, it looks great.
I'll have to pick that up. I think that's one that Haley and I could watch. We have a very specific line of horror spooky that we can watch, and that's definitely one that I should throw on there.
Do you think she's seen it?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean this with no disrespect to either of you or your partners, but is Ghost like a horror movie in any way?
Not a horror movie, but it's scary. Some of it's scary.
Okay.
Yep. There's some like thriller crime elements that are kind of intense, and then there's some demon shit in it that's like pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it since I was young, and I've always liked Ghost. I have a huge thing for Whoopi just due to Sister Act, but
yeah. Oscar winner, I think, for this movie, Ghost, right?
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
I believe you're right.
To close out my spooky season, I went to a screening on Godzilla Day, and this was at the Academy Museum, and it was a Godzilla marathon.
Ooh.
But the very first movie in it was the first Godzilla, and it was the original cut on 35 millimeter.
Cool.
Whoa.
And so I went just for that. The tickets are like $25, but I was like, I need to see this on film. Oddly, like a rare. It's become rare. I don't know if it always was that way, but it's kind of become a rare thing to get to see that on 35, and it totally blew me away and completely held up. Just a huge theater filled with enthusiastic Godzilla fans. It felt like an opening night.
Wow.
Screening of something.
Are there multiple cuts of that film?
Yeah, there's notably the US release called Godzilla King of the Monsters, which like just totally fucks with everything.
I have an order of the Criterion 4K that just came out of it. I assume that's the original cut?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they have both on it, yeah.
Okay.
And if I could pitch an episode, Godzilla, that release, then the 1998 Godzilla, which just came out on 4K, and also Godzilla -1, which is coming out on 4K.
And then what, like the Bryan Cranston 2015 Godzilla as well?
That one out. You can leave
we're putting them all together,
if
baby.
We're putting 98
well, actually, I do like Gareth Edwards. I would definitely be down.
I don't hate that movie.
That. I don't hate it either.
Well, I have them ordered. The other two, the original and the -1. I haven't seen -1, which I'm excited about.
-1's good, man.
Oh, baby.
But I definitely own the 4K of the 1998 Matthew Broderick version.
For real?
And I have watched it, and
okay,
we'll save it for the episode.
This is a true story. When my dad took us to see that movie in theaters. So if it's 98, I was 10 when it came out.
Okay.
And so it was myself, my younger brother, my younger sister, and I'm pretty sure my older brother as well. But my dad turned to my sister either like halfway through the movie or right after it ended and was like, "Are you doing okay?" And she's like, "Did this really happen?"
Yes.
She was probably fucking 6 at the time, like she could not put it together.
Should we talk about Conan the Barbarian?
Yes.
Hang on. Cracking a new brewski just for this conversation.
Oh.
This is 1982's perfect sandals and swords fantasy epic starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, directed by John Milius, also starring the late great, who we just lost, James Earl Jones. Max von Sydow pops up for a scene. I'm going to start it off with this because I don't know where you guys are with it. Had y'all seen this?
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Oh,
Drew, I am also in Kurt's camp. I had never seen this movie.
Oh, okay.
I thought that this movie was like rated PG.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And I think you guys, again, I, in all seriousness, did not watch the second one. I believe the second one is rated like PG or PG-13, right?
I don't know what either of them are rated, actually.
Yeah, I don't either, but it is much more tame. The second one is much more comedic and is not written nor directed by John Milius. So
it's violent, though.
It's bloody.
Yeah.
There is like blood in the action and stuff.
Having just checked my sources, the first one is rated R, the second one is rated PG.
Wow. Okay.
That tracks.
Cool.
82 and 84. So I don't know why no one showed me this movie while I was 10 years old.
Maybe it's because Arnold Schwarzenegger has sex with a witch and then throws her into a fire.
Dog, when that fucking happened, I was like, fuck off any movie that's ever been made that isn't Conan the Barbarian. This is the fucking best thing I've ever seen in my life.
He throws her into the fire after having sex with her, and she turns into a ball of fire.
Yeah, dude.
And flies away.
She was trying to like eat him, to his credit. She was trying to eat him.
Yes.
I thought this movie was perfect from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Set it up for us, Sam. What is this movie about?
Okay, this is a movie, like I said, it's a sword and sandals fantasy movie about a person named Conan who lives on the land with his people. And one day, a group of kind of dark crusaders show up in his land and kill his mom and dad and almost all of the adults in his community and kidnap the children to be slaves and like members of this snake cult. Conan gets put to work as a young child slave, ages into Arnold Schwarzenegger, who then...
Because his slavery is just pushing this giant like cog around in a circle.
It's referred to as the Wheel of Pain.
The Wheel of Pain.
All of the children are attached to it. And as time passes through this cold open, we see that none of the other children other than Conan survived.
Yeah. And because he's pushing this giant thing around day in and day out, he turns from a normal child into the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And there's a wonderful reveal from the other actors into Conan, played by Arnold.
And he looks up at the camera.
It's a tight close-up, and he looks up. Yeah. It's a great introduction.
Let's also be honest, this is 1982 Arnold. I mean, this is his first big movie.
Yep.
Correct.
And this is him at the peak of his like masculinity in his physical form. And he is like mesmerizingly giant in this movie.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So this is 82. 84 is both Conan the Destroyer and the Terminator. And when I was watching this, I could see how James Cameron sees this movie and goes like, yes, that's my unstoppable techno killing machine.
Mm-hmm.
He has some incredibly great lines, but much like the Terminator, he has very little dialogue in this movie. He is huge in this movie. And
he dropped 30 pounds before they shot it because he was too big.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Because I feel like, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's like considerably bigger in part 2.
Yeah, and what's interesting I listened to the commentaries with both of them. Both discs on this amazing Arrow release have multiple commentary tracks.
Mm-hmm.
The director of Conan the Destroyer is Richard Fleischer, legendary director. And he says how he wanted less clothing on Arnold in the second because he has all these amazing muscles, but he's wearing all this clothing. And he also
give the people what they want.
Yeah, he's not wrong. He read Arnold's autobiography, so he learned like the terminology of like weightlifting, and he went to Arnold and was like, I want you to have more cuts. I need more cuts. And cuts, I guess, are the like defining sort of like ripples in muscle. And I guess that's like a story Arnold would tell people, that a director actually told him to get more cuts, get bigger. but it truly shows. He's barely wearing any clothing in the second one.
Yeah, he's got like a tiny little like, piece of underwear garment on, and then like sheepskin like Ugg boots, and like that's it.
Yes, it's the iconic kind of look of what you know of as Conan, but I will say the wardrobe and costume design and the choices in the first one are way cooler. Like it looks way cooler in the first one.
The like battle paint, the undercover battle paint that they don in the first one is incredible.
Yeah.
It's so cool looking.
So Conan grows up, becomes Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then what, Sam?
He learns he is granted his taste for violence and blood, basically being in medieval fight clubs, being a slave in medieval fight clubs where he's paid to fight people, and he's the best one at it. So good so that his master frees him.
He fights in what is referred to as the pit. The pit. It's a very sort of like existential way of just like grouping all these sorts of fights into the pit.
Yeah.
And he becomes the champion of the pit, so much so that yes, his master does free him, but before so, he takes him to the east.
Yeah, it's a lot of shades of a little movie called Gladiator, which years later would go on to win Best Picture.
I also read that Ridley Scott turned this down.
Interesting.
Okay, listen, I love Legend, but Legend doesn't have fucking dick on Conan.
Completely different movies. Completely different movies.
But like, you throw Tom Cruise from Legend into the pit with Conan, he's getting his fucking arm ripped off 12 seconds into it.
Absolutely.
I'd watch it.
And so when he's in the East, we have what is the most iconic sort of scene from the movie, which is the Genghis Khan type king of war who is saying
Tulsa Doom.
Well, no. This is just in the cold open.
Oh,
and
you're
he's
right,
in the East.
Sorry.
What is best? What is best? And, one of the guys is like, a falcon at your side and the wind before you or something. Wrong. Conan, what is best? To crush your enemies, to see them flee before you, to hear the lamentation of their women. And that is kind of the most iconic line of the movie. And even so much so that in the commentary with Arnold and John Milius, once it gets to that scene, they're both kind of like, whoa, this is the best part. Anyone listening who likes commentary tracks, that is not a rehearsed commentary. It is not a, we're going to do this, we're going to talk about that. They are just literally saying whatever happens in front of them. And as we continue our conversation, I texted some of these great one-liners that they share between themselves. And so I'll bring them up as they apply.
Just that scene in particular is it's so perfect because he's sitting there cross-legged and very much sitting up, so his entire chest is exposed and big. And the camera is like pushing in slowly, and then the minute the Genghis Khan character says like, Conan, what is best? The camera speeds up and pushes in on Arnold saying this line, but it doesn't really stop moving, and he's just sitting there stoically. And then it kind of like fades to whatever else is happening in the background, and it is a fucking awesome shot. And it is done in that way, to your point, Drew, that it seems like the rest of the movie is kind of centered around not just that line, but the shot itself. Like, they knew what they were doing when they captured that, because it looks like a Frank Frazetta painting who would go on to paint a lot of images of Conan, and they were used on a lot of the novels and tales of Conan's trials later, but it looks like a Frank Frazetta painting.
Absolutely. And there's even moments on like the track where John Milius recognizes that, and he says like, hey, this is just like a Frazetta,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a movie I've seen since probably like middle school. John Milius is one of those, he's a writer, director, most famous for his writing. He wrote the first couple Dirty Harry movies. He did the pass on Jaws, and he wrote the USS Indianapolis monologue.
Oh, yeah. Did he direct Flight of the Intruder?
I believe so.
Yes.
And he also wrote Apocalypse Now, which was in 79. And that's like, this was 82. So Apocalypse Now, he almost got an Academy Award for that. And so he was kind of like really, really hot.
He wrote and directed a John Dillinger movie from 1973 just called Dillinger, with Warren Oates playing Dillinger, that Arrow put out early on. In the Arrow having a U.S. arm, they put this movie out on Blu-ray, and it's awesome.
How does it stack up against Michael Mann's Public Enemies? Thought so.
I like the camera work slightly better in Dillinger.
John Milius is in that sort of film brat era of like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola. He's also the main inspiration for the character Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski. That's right. John Milius. And if you look up John Milius and you look up Walter Sobchak,
exactly like him.
They look exactly the same. And there are moments on this commentary track where he says shit that's like, that is straight out of Walter Sobchak's mind. Like, he's like, there's the shot of Valeria, and I wrote it down. Oh yeah. He says, "She's a Valkyrie. I mean, she's a real Valkyrie." Like, he's the sort of guy that gives a take two on his dialogue. He just says the same thing again, you know, like
Arnold's like, "What the fuck does this have to do with Vietnam?"
Yeah. It's literally shut the fuck up, Donnie. At certain moments, he just like steamrolls Arnold in conversation.
Calmer than you are, dude.
Calmer than you are. But I guess, sorry, I brought up John Milius, and I brought up that because we're talking about this iconic line in the writing. So the script was originally written by Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
And I was able to find both the Oliver Stone draft and the John Milius draft, and I read them both.
Wow.
Because I was curious who wrote like the most iconic stuff.
Okay.
And the Oliver Stone draft kind of just like lays out the groundwork. It's good, but it's not at all. It's like not what you know as Conan. It really is Milius who brings everything that you think of when you think of this movie being fucking awesome. It's John Milius. Like, that was his touch. But they share a writing credit, and I do think that's fair. The first draft kind of, it does like the heavy lifting of like the structure of the story, whereas Milius comes in and like really makes Conan this individual character. Because Conan isn't Hercules. He isn't just this guy who's a do-gooder sort of person.
I think that's one of the things that I really liked about the movie, in all honesty. Absolutely. Is that he's much more of an anti-hero than he is just like a straight hero.
Yes.
I enjoyed watching a movie where I was just kind of like, yeah, the politics of this world are probably really fucked up and ugly and awful, and you're not like beating me over the head with that this person's like a really good person, stuck in a shitty time or something. It's more of like, I don't think I want to be friends with any of these people.
He punches a camel.
Yes,
for like seemingly no reason.
And that's again John Milius. That was not in the Oliver Stone draft.
No shit.
Sam, you should know that in Conan
the Destroyer,
thank you, Arnold sees that camel again.
No way.
Yeah, and then he bonks it on the head and it passes out again.
He also punches like several horses in the sequel.
Yes, and Richard Fleischer says that was one of, like, he like mentions like I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. That was one of the things that like really stuck with him about the verse.
He's like, we gotta check in on that camel.
Yeah. And he's like, that was me. I really wanted to bring that camel back. I'm like, all right. I don't know if that's something I would be like, that was me, but it is awesome to know.
Hey, remember that scene when he punched that camel? Check this out.
So he's such a great warrior in the pit that his master takes him to the east to get special training over there. And not long after his master releases him, Conan is forced to just find his way. And the thing that has stuck with him is the murder of his family. And more explicitly, it's the symbol of two snakes and a black sun. And so he's off on his quest for revenge.
Because that symbol is sort of on the crest of the helmet worn by James Earl Jones, who kills his mom.
It's like the cult symbol.
Yeah.
Yes. And so in his journeys, he meets a thief, Supate, and they together steal a jewel from this cult. Shortly thereafter, they meet King Osric, whose daughter has been
brainwashed.
Brainwashed is a great way to put it, by this cult led by Thulsa Doom. And so they are now on a quest along with Valeria to retrieve Osric's daughter.
Before that happens, they break into like the Snake Tower, right?
Yes, this is stealing the jewel. Yes, absolutely.
They decide to break into a kind of like a priest's tower, not knowing that it is the same cult that killed Conan's family. And when they're in that tower, they discover that the people who are praying to these snake gods kind of have, I wouldn't say like special powers, but there's like a giant snake and there's like a statue that becomes real at one point. I'm going to say this straight up. The minute that this scene started to happen, I paused it because I had to pee, but I was also like, I looked around to the empty room and I said, Doug, is there a fucking giant snake in this movie and no one told me about this?
And it looks awesome.
It looks great. Awesome, dude. It looks awesome.
Imagine like Anaconda, the movie, is like a 1 to the 10 of Conan the Barbarian in terms of giant snake quality.
I love a fantasy sword and sandal that's gonna get kind of like genre-y and just like be like, yeah, there's like giant fucking snakes in this. At one point in this movie, James Earl Jones turns into a snake and we're never just like, why'd he do that? Like the logic behind the whole thing is built in this way where you're just kind of like, yeah, of course he can turn into a snake.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it's like Conan's he's stuck and he's Conan, so he's nothing but muscle and he's got to fight a giant snake. The minute you saw the snake come alive, you're like, fucking shit, he's going to have to fight this giant snake, and sign me up for that.
Yes. It's all kind of an ode to those sword and sorcery movies since like the 50s and the pulp comics and the novels and such. So the first draft is much more like a sort of Seventh Voyage of Sinbad type of tone.
I'm happy they didn't do that.
Where it's just this like protagonist who's going along with things almost like the audience's way into everything. But John Milius's draft really brings this certain logic and these themes that are concurrent with those sort of movies, but no one had ever really taken it to that sort of personal artistic interpretation in the way that like George Lucas does with science fiction space opera in Star Wars. He's just making this sort of he's throwing down the gauntlet for the sword and sorcery movie, I feel like.
I think we should also acknowledge that this movie has a narrator,
yes,
who also becomes a character in the movie. He's a wizard who's played by Mako?
I'm not sure how to pronounce it, yeah.
A Japanese actor who literally became the voice of Aku in Samurai Jack, if anybody watched that.
Oh,
who's
nice.
like the main bad guy, who's kind of like a serpentine underworld lord.
Interestingly enough, the Milius draft had Conan doing the narration. And that was the plan.
It was like a studio note, right? For his accent.
It was a note, and they discuss it on the commentary track that they were worried that people either wouldn't know exactly what he was saying or might take it in a comedic sort of scoff type level. Which, that's, I guess, the most studio note ever. That's why those people are there, to think about those sorts of things. But I think it really it adds a certain myth making to having the wizard give the narration and not Conan. Like it's a story that's being told beyond and beyond.
It feels very much like Mad Max.
Yes.
In that way, where we're here for the tale, but it's also a tale being told to like the histories.
Yes.
Drew, in the Oliver Stone draft, is the ending the same? We won't spoil it, but like in terms of Conan's kind of final confrontation with James Earl Jones and the cult and all that stuff.
The third act is wildly different.
Wow. Cool.
I ask because it reminded me so much of Apocalypse Now.
I know.
I was curious if it was.
I thought the same exact thing.
Wow.
I thought the same exact thing.
Good call.
The Oliver Stone, it has the same sentiments. He is presented with the option to stay with the princess and become king. In the Milius version, it's not necessarily addressed, but you can assume that he has a moment to be able to take these followers and does not do that. So I think like the sentiment is still there, but more of a Errol Flynn type scenario where it's two sort of women that he can choose between. One, each person provides a different path for his life.
I would love to talk about how awesome James Earl Jones is in this movie.
Oh my God.
He plays the villain of this movie, the leader of this cult, and he's a very scary man, half snake.
These piercing blue eyes.
Piercing blue eyes.
And straight hair.
Everyone in this movie has a mullet, we should say that. James Earl Jones is incredibly straight, yeah.
Yeah.
And he performs it with such a kind of menacing calm and like a very slow sort of thoughtful pace to his responses. And Milius, like, he's loving it. He's like, he's just holding on his like thoughts, and it is creepy. And like something, you know, I don't know enough about his entire filmography, James Earl Jones, but something I had never seen from him. And it just really blew my mind. I loved him so much in this.
I think it's really interesting to talk about his performance as a villain, just in terms of the Darth Vader voice. Yeah. You know, like this is, again, the actor who voiced Darth Vader didn't play him in the suit, but he is such a different type of villain in this movie. At the end there, when he's talking about how like he used to think that it was steel, but it's actually all about flesh. And he's like, this is what real power is. And he like asks that girl to come down, and she just like jumps to her death. And it was that moment where I was like, this motherfucker is crazy, dude. But like done in such a way. Milius is really good the same way that Apocalypse Now plays out, where it's this godlike person thinking themselves a god.
Yeah.
And how they use that power is really interesting.
And just like someone who's so iconic for his voice. Everything he does in this movie without speaking, you know?
Yes.
It just, what an actor.
There's that shot. It ends up pushing into his face, and it becomes a close-up on his eyes. Like the first time we meet him, when he's like killing Conan's community. I was just like, oh my God, oh fuck. I was like mesmerized by it. I was pulled in. I believed at that point.
It's perfect casting.
Yeah.
Like, simply put, it's just like so perfect.
It's so rad. I had no idea he was in this till the opening titles.
Okay, so I knew he was in this, but I thought he was a good guy. Like my entire knowledge of this movie was, I was like, oh yeah, it's James Earl Jones and Arnold, like hand in hand. They're best buds. Not the case, boys. Kurt, I already got Drew's favorite line. Did you have a favorite line in this? Because I definitely did.
I just appreciated that it's like 20 minutes into this movie before you, let alone hear a line from Arnold, but hear Arnold. And there's a good like 2-minute stretch while he's fighting in the pit where he doesn't speak, but there's so many like, from Arnold, like in the way that only Arnold can do, and it's so distinctly him. Yeah, that comes to mind first, I guess. Just his grunts. I love him so much.
Dude, this relit the Arnold flame so hard.
If this didn't, nothing would.
Dude, I'm sitting here and I'm like, are we doing Raw Deal and Red Heat tomorrow or what?
So did you just get the 4K Arrow of Conan the Barbarian, Sam? Or do you have the box set? Or what do you have?
Listen, man, I'm going to be honest with you guys.
Did you stream this?
Arrow announced this movie, and I was kind of like, all right, well, cool. We're on this, you know, we were doing the show at the time, but I kind of put it off. And then I was like, I'm going to get the Conan 4K. And by that point, the big box was totally sold out. I could not find the Conan 4K anywhere. So I ordered the Conan Blu-ray big box.
Okay.
So I watched the Arrow Blu-ray of Conan the Barbarian. I did not get Conan the Destroyer. But what's frustrating is that when I was ordering the Blu-ray, the 2-pack of both of them was still in stock.
Drew, you tell me how you feel, but I actually don't think that this is like a shining example of the 4K format. I feel like you're okay, Sam. I think to just have this on Blu-ray.
I think I think that is fair, but I will say I am so fucking happy I have both of these on 4K.
I mean, same.
It's just exactly the sort of thing that I want on 4K, which is like a brilliant transfer of well shot movies shot on film, one of which is shot by one of the greatest cinematographers of all time, Jack Cardiff.
Is that the first one or the second one?
The second.
The second one, I will say, looks a lot better than the first one.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting.
The 4K. And I'm not sure if that's...
I think it's just better shot.
It's just better shot, probably, yeah.
But yeah, it's shot on 35, and it's one of those very on-location, natural lighting sort of movies. So I can see how the Blu-ray would be a little more forgiving to it.
I'll always take the 4K over the Blu-ray, but I guess it's just not one that I felt I was seeing like the sharpest kind of filmic qualities, Drew. Like the grain didn't seem to me like to be extremely sharp and all that, but at least in the first one.
I think that's kind of the way it's shot, to be honest, with the first one.
It'd be interesting to A/B it with the Blu-ray.
Yes, definitely.
I thought it looked good, if not a little soft in some areas. If my grandma came over, I wouldn't be like, this is the 4K or this is the Blu-ray we need to show you.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Ooh, that's a good
Tenet?
question. I mean, if it's just Blu-ray, probably Sunshine. My grandma's a huge Sunshine fan.
I do have at least one line I would love to say that's from the commentary.
Yes,
before
please.
we move on.
Always.
All right. Yeah, I got to give you my favorite line from part 1 as well.
Okay. It's John Milius and Arnold. They're watching the movie, and it's the witch scene. And when the actress shows up, Arnold, I shit you not, just says, "Oh, she was at cigar night last Monday."
Wow.
And it's just like one of those, like, that's just Arnold's life.
This
was recorded like 2000, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, she was at cigar night last Monday.
Shout out to her, man.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. I can't remember her name, but that was just the funniest thing.
Shout out to cigar nights on Mondays.
Yeah.
Yes.
She rolls.
Incredible. All right, really quickly, my favorite line. So he's talking to Subate about what gods they pray to.
Yes. This is great.
And Subate says he prays to the 4 winds. And Conan laughs at him and he goes, "Crom laughs at your 4 winds. He laughs from his mountain."
Is it Crom or Crum?
Crom.
Crom is
O-M. Crom laughs
Conan's
at your 4
god.
winds. Yeah.
Did that scene remind anyone else of the scene in The Revenant where Tom Hardy is eating that squirrel and
then tells the guy to roll over so he can jerk off?
But he's talking about isn't he talking about God?
Dog. That's
I've only seen The Revenant.
Yeah, exactly. That's a you question, brother. I only saw The Revenant once, and it was next to Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Tune into our Patreon to hear me talk about whether or not that's true from The Revenant. Solo podcast.
Crom laughs at your 4 winds.
Let's touch a little bit on part 2, Conan the Destroyer. This film is Sam, it's right in one of your favorite subgenres. It involves a virgin sacrifice.
Oh, God damn it, man. Okay, so coming in blind to part 2, what did I miss? What's the general premise of it?
Drew, you can help me out on this, but essentially kind of a sorceress queen promises to bring back Conan's Valeria from the dead in exchange for him leading her daughter on a quest that is this daughter's destiny, but this queen has secret evil intentions for Conan and her daughter that involves a virgin sacrifice.
Yes. So Conan is just kind of this dark, brooding guy, but it's funny and kind of more in the Ray Harryhausen journey movie.
I know that kind of culturally 1 is really respected and 2 is kind of like laughed at a little bit, but how did y'all feel about it?
I had a very good time. I think 1 is like way cooler and better, but 2 it has plenty of cool shit in it.
Plenty of cool shit. That's my short answer, but ultimately, like, it is that thing of, like, you had the coolest person at the helm of the first one, and that's kind of the thing that held everything together. Anyone else, unfortunately, will get the recipe of this dish wrong.
I'm curious, Drew, like, if you know the answer to this, but it's one of those, like, sequels where the credits, the opening credits were going, and I kept waiting for familiar faces from, behind the camera from the first movie, and it's just like it seems to be like an entirely new group of people.
I think so.
Obviously, Schwarzenegger and Milius are, like, on good terms enough to do a commentary however many years later.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what happened?
I don't. I might have read about this, but it's not coming back to me. I just imagine the first one was a success, and Milius was kind of just like, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a really tiny, gotta call back this real quick from the commentary. It's just related to what led Milius to even make Conan.
Okay.
He had made this surf movie, Big Wednesday, which has become a cult classic, but apparently it was a big flop when it came out. And he said on this commentary track, Big Wednesday was such a flop that all I wanted to do was run away and join the French Legionnaires, which is like the most Walter Sobchak thing anyone would ever fucking say. But I can only imagine that Conan the Barbarian takes off and he just had another passion project that he probably made. And it might have been Red Dawn, if I'm not mistaken.
I've never seen Red Dawn.
Oh, Kurt.
Is it great?
Would love Red Dawn.
Swayze?
Dude, it's stacked.
Wolverines. My man from Ghost?
Dude, you would love Red Dawn. You would love Red Dawn.
Wait.
Not to be that guy who's like, you haven't seen that movie, you would love it.
Please, but that's why we're here.
Dog. Are we talking here and you've not seen Red Dawn?
Yeah.
Sam, what are you doing letting me not see Red Dawn?
Dog, you're coming at me about my love for C. Thomas Howell when we're talking about The Hitcher and you've not seen Red Dawn?
Shit.
And you call yourself a Swayze head.
Unfortunately for me, John Milius is kind of the glue that holds the Conan together. And without him, I think, the recipe just kind of gets a little muddled. And, they have one of the most legendary directors at the helm. The movie, technically speaking, is very well made. We're lucky enough to have a commentary track from the director for Conan the Destroyer. And I wrote this down. It's a little long, but it kind of explains his mentality going into making the sequel. And he said, making a sequel to a successful film can have its dangers. It can be a dangerous thing to do because the sequel is rarely up to the original. So that was a challenge to me as to make the sequel work. And that's why I've laced the picture with humor to lighten it and make it different from the original. To me, those are all the reasons why I don't like Conan the Destroyer as much as Barbarian.
But do you think, coming from a person who doesn't own it, do you think it is worth owning?
In a 2-pack.
I know, that's the thing, because it's just like, it's the side of the coin, It's like the flip of it. I love to hate it.
Do I sell the Conan the Barbarian Blu-ray and then buy the 4K of both of them?
That's too much work for me. Sure. I wouldn't.
Do they even have the special editions anymore?
I don't know if they do. I don't know. My question to either of you, and Kurt, I think I know the answer, but Drew, have you seen Red Sonja?
I saw it back in middle school when I was watching like all of these. I went through a big sword and sorcery phase, especially like the 80s movies. I remember being kind of whatever about it, but I honestly haven't revisited it in, over a decade.
Sure.
And having watched this again, I was reminded that Richard Fleischer did in fact direct Red Sonja.
The next year, yeah.
It's kind of moved up on my list of like, I should revisit that.
I've definitely not seen it.
Arnold is in it as Conan, but he's never named, right?
Yeah, from what I remember, it's like a cameo type.
Got it.
but I could be mistaken. But I do remember, like, it is a thing where it's like, oh, he's definitely back. You know, like it wasn't like they just used unused footage from Conan the Destroyer or something like that.
I am happy to announce that there is a 4K of Red Sonja, which is region free on Orbit right now.
There you go. So yes, obviously we recommend this new Arrow 4K Blu-ray, however you want to find it. And if you're looking for more, Conan the Destroyer is available as well. All right, before we go, it's time to put wishes out into the physical media universe for titles that do not yet exist. All right, Drew, you get to go first.
Wait, do we not do the I wish?
No, we're gonna do it, Drew.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna chant, and then we're gonna go.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna go first. Marty, you go second.
Okay.
I wish for Jingle All the Way, 4K, Kino Lorber with a slip.
Yeah. I wish for would get his ass kicked in the ring with Conan the Barbarian, starring Tom Cruise, Ridley Scott's Legend, 4K Arrow, limited edition.
I also wish for a 4K big box limited edition from Arrow of John McTiernan's The Predator. All right, boys, all Arnold all the time.
Hell yeah. Well,
I guess yours wasn't, but more or less. All right, Kurt, so we talked about Legend earlier. What you got about Legend?
Legend's just like a really beautiful fantasy film directed by Ridley Scott in the mid-'80s, very early Tom Cruise, late 80s, I guess. It's like 87, I think, later 80s.
Before
it's like,
that.
I think it's right after Top Gun, right? It's either right before.
No.
Oh, is it right
before Top Gun?
It's right before Top Gun. I just know he did Scott Brothers back-to-back.
85.
Okay. And has just an amazing villain performance, not dissimilar in how much it impressed me upon first viewing from James Earl Jones, but by Tim Curry as just this prosthetic masterpiece of a villain in this movie.
If I may say, the best looking / designed villain of all time.
So iconic.
It's really good. His voice is so good. And Arrow did some really nice Blu-rays of it a couple years back, and it'd be really great if they upgraded it. I could see it.
Yeah.
Drew, what a pick.
Jingle All the Way. Kind of my favorite, guilty. I'm guilty. It's kind of my favorite Arnold. That is my just childhood right there in a movie. If you haven't, for whatever reason, seen Jingle All the Way, Arnold is looking for a action figure called Turbo Man. And it's just him trying to get Turbo Man.
It's like a hot Christmas item.
Yeah. It is the hot Christmas item. And there's like a Turbo Man show and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's cool about it is Arnold is still playing against the Arnold character, like archetypal type. Like he still is an Arnold character who finds himself in this situation.
Yeah.
And I think it is still an Arnold movie. It's not like he's cashing out and he's doing a kids movie. It is an Arnold kids movie. And I would love it if Kino would just fucking already do a 4K of it already. Jesus Christ.
I mean, fucking shit, Drew. Let's be honest. It's going to come out eventually, and we're going to do it on this stupid show. We're all going to own fucking Jingle All the Way on 4K. But...
I watched them shoot Jingle All the Way, Drew, when I was a kid at the Mall of America.
Yeah.
I remember this story.
Yeah. Really life-changing stuff.
But yeah, I'm completely honored to be on this pod and to be on this pod on an Arnold episode is huge for me. And there's no way I wasn't going to wish for an Arnold.
Hell yeah. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, in the same way, we try to keep our picks themed to the show that we're doing. And Predator is one of, if not my favorite Arnold vehicle. I think it is a perfect movie start to finish. And I feel the same way that I felt about Nightmare on Elm Street. I just want like a big, thick case of it on my shelf somewhere. I love that movie enough that I'll quadruple dip just to have a better version of it on the shelf. I love the Predator. Well, I like the first Predator movie a lot.
I was going to say, I actually really hope that your wish doesn't come true, because I have like the Fox release of Predator on 4K, and then I have a 3-pack of Predator on 4K that includes like Predator 2 and the Adrian Brody one. Dude. I don't need 3 copies of Predator in 4K, but I'm sure I would get it if they did that.
I mean, sign me up, baby. Sign me up.
That sounds like a YP, Kurt. Not an FP.
Okay, that's it for our show. Thanks to everyone out there for listening. Thank you to Patrick Laban for our amazing music. Thank you to Kimberly, who's out there somewhere. Thank you to...
Heard she got picked up by Crom.
Kim joined the snake cult. She couldn't be here tonight, but we thank her anyways.
Crom!
And Drew, thank you to you, buddy.
Drew.
We love having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I love being here.
We love having you on this.
I absolutely love it. I look forward to it every fucking time.
In July of 2025, when Kino announces Jingle All the Way, we'll make sure to have you back on.
I will be ready.
Crom laughs at your 4 wins. He laughs from his mountain.